They're guiding the Proteas to a win. And the other big story of the weekend was hometown hero Hamilton takes British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Well, the Sowetan continuing with their off-the-wall headlines. Uproar over church virgins. That's on page 4. I'll just read you the first line of that story. Churches are all about denouncing promiscuity and promoting virginity. That's one of the churches in Limpopo has since started annual virginity testing. Off the wall. I think an interesting story there. Unions target EFF support. Founders of a new organization plan to rescue fighters who worship Julius Malema. That's the front page of the Sowetan. Well, the back page looks at the permutations for the FIFA World Cup. All the stats. Brazil now take on Germany, looking at head-to-head encounters there. And the Netherlands take on Argentina. That's in the second semi-final on the 9th. That's the first match is on the 8th. The second match is on the 9th. Both of those matches kick off at 10 o'clock South African time. What's up with the Pretoria news? Looks like Oscar video laid bare. Australian TV channel airs footage showing athlete reenacting the night of Reeva's killing. And a picture there of Oscar Pistorius on his stumps. It's a still photograph taken from that world exclusive. The big question is, how will it affect the case going forward? That's on the front page of the Pretoria News this morning. Well, an estimated 30 to 40% of retail spending is unbanked and is referred to as grey money. The money referred to as grey is that kind that floats and seems to be circulating in the informal business sector. But how can banks and retailers start focusing on this market? I welcome Lebo Motuehwa, who is Managing Director of Foshizi, that specializes in mass market research strategy. A very good morning to you, Lebo. I always appreciate your time. I know you've done a lot of interviews. Just explain to us, what is grey money exactly?
Well, basically what grey money is the money that never sees the bank. It's the money that people make from stock files. It's the money that you find, let's say, for example, I'm a taxi driver, I'm paid in cash, or I'm a DSTV installer, I'm paid in cash, or I'm a nanny or a domestic worker, I'm paid in cash. So that money never actually gets to see the bank.
So grey money in a sense is cash?
Yeah, in a sense it's cash.
But not banked?
It's not banked, but there's two types of grey money. There's the money that people also make from the side gigs that they have. So maybe I have a normal 9-to-5 job, but on weekends I happen to have other things that I do on the side. Maybe I own a shebeen, maybe I own a car wash, or maybe I use some of my skills to better myself in some form or the other. And that's basically how grey money is. But that money never gets declared. And I guess that's what actually has grabbed people's headline, that you retail sector by now to be underperforming, but if anything, it's actually performing quite well. But then when you look at the numbers, it doesn't make sense, because you'd expect that this family, for example, that earns about 10,000 rand, you look at all the expenses, the debit orders and all of that, they probably supposed to have about 200 rand left. But yet this family still have food, they running floatly, perfectly. It's because of the grey money, the money that we don't see, but yet this money is actually doing rounds.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so it's also, you find that people still have extended family responsibilities. So what those people basically do is, as an individual, let's say I live in Sandton, I'm married and all of that, I still have responsibilities over my family, or my extended family, my grandmother, my aunts, and therefore they would still expect me to give them some money. So I get paid. After I get paid, what happens? I still have to share some of my income with them. So that money as well, it's money that is not being seen, because what? It doesn't go through account to Gogo's bank account. It's money that I drive and I go give it to Gogo to say, okay, fine, here are the things, and so forth. We also find that some of these families, when we go into these families, we're expecting these guys to be struggling, especially when you find a household where no one is working, formally that is. But when we go into these guys' homes and say, look, okay, we're trying to understand how you guys make it on a day-to-day basis, because the lights are on, the food is in the fridge, what's happening? And they will say, well, I have a tenant, So it's like, okay, so how much you make from a tenant? It's like, well, I'm making about 1.5. And what else do you have? Well, I've got a spaza shop, I've got this and this and that. All of us are chipping in to make ends meet, and guess what? On a monthly basis, when you start documenting it, these families are like living between 8,000, 12,000. But yet, when you ask them, how much do you make? They don't know.
How did you go about doing the research?
Well, we go into people's homes. We went into people's homes. We spent a lot of time with those people in those homes nationally. We also conducted a lot of focus groups. Those focus groups were conducted where the people live. So we did not bring people to a formal environment in terms of talking to them, because you know how it is. When you put people in a focus group that is supposedly in a fancy office, you meet the representative, not the real person. So our philosophy has always been that let's go where the people are, in the rural areas, in the townships and so forth. That's where we go and actually go talk to the people. So we went there, we spoke to them, we asked them to trust us, we asked them to open their wallets, so to speak, and let us in. And they did. They let us in and they gave us all these numbers. And when we go and verify that by looking at the retail space, then we came to an estimate of about 30% of that money is actually making back into retail. And all of
I want to speak to you about, is it going back into retail?
It's going back, well, it's actually the spend of retail, because the basics, when we ask them, what do you do with this money most of the time? You find that a lot of that money is going back into retail. You know, it's about buying the basics for them, you know, so it's actually going back into the retail space.
Looking at it, I mean, it is interesting, but my next question is, so what can we deduce from this? Is that the economy is not as bad off as we make it out to be?
Well, there are a couple of things that we can do better. If you look at the Nigerian market, for example, the Nigerians actually do recognize that informal money. We don't. You know, if the banks actually were to lower the costs of banking with them, and then people will start actually now trusting the form of putting that money in their bank account. If anything, it's actually very dangerous that people are still sleeping with 12,000 rands in their sheds with them, because they say, well, if I put it in a bank, I'm not going to get my 12,000 rand back. No, I won't. So, well, if that's the case, then I'd rather keep this money with me or find other ways of loaning it out or sharing with other people. You know.
Very interesting. I want to chat to you about Foshizi. Tell us a little bit about the company. I was just scrolling the website for a bit. An interesting setup.
Well, we've been around for 10 years. We are 100% black-owned. We do research and strategy on a day-to-day basis. And basically, what all we're about is we've opened so many avenues for many other clients. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention some of our clients. They will range from Toyota, the likes of Nando's, the likes of DSTV, and so forth. Those are our typical clients that we work with. And we've understood the one thing that the market still seems to not understand, and that is not everything has been discovered. Black folks, or the black mass market, which happens to be 80% of the country, is still looking for ways to be represented. So what we do, then we go in there, we test the products with them, we ask them to design the product in the way that they would want to design the product, in a way that if they own this business, what would they do? And then from then, we go back to client, and then we design a strategy for them and say, this is how the market wants your product packaged for them. This is how they want the pricing. This is how they want to repay it, etc., etc. And from then, it's
success stories. Yes. I'd love to hear it. Well, thanks very much for joining us. Interesting numbers coming out of there. I'm chatting to Lebo Mochihua. He's the managing director of Foshizi. He's saying an estimated 30 to 40% of retail spending is unbanked. It's called grey money. And interesting numbers coming out of there. Foshizi deal with research for some top clients. Lebo, appreciate your time. Thanks for chatting to us.
Thanks.
Well, a busy day we've got ahead of us here on ANN7 Newswise. Let's take a look at some of the stories that we'll be tracking closely for you throughout the day today. And the big one is obviously the Oscar Pistorius trial, which resumes after we had Friday off. It comes back with much controversy with the leaked reenactment video, which made waves over the weekend. We'll be live to the North Gauteng High Court at 9:30 this morning. Well, also, the NUMSA strike is likely to end if the talks on day 7 of the strike is set to yield some solid agreements. The workers are demanding a 2-digit salary increase.